To the IDP Plus podcast. I'm your host, Johnny. This season, I'll be covering our IDP Waiver Wire with videos just like this uploaded at the beginning of each week, talking about players who excelled the week before and who I think you should pick up and start for the next week. Now, I understand some of you are in deep leagues, some may be in shallow leagues. I'm going to try to keep a wide list here to help you no matter what league you are in. Each week, I'll be bringing a list of defensive linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs to the table to help you make the best moves to win your IDP leagues. Let's get right into it. We're going to start off looking at defensive linemen who I think that not only can help you in week one, but whole season long. So when I talk about these players, I will talk about owned percentage. This is stats I pull from Yahoo, which is my favorite app, my favorite platform to play on. Now, understand that only 12.5% of fantasy football leagues are even IDP leagues. So, number one, it's tough to get this information. And number two, TJ Watt, for example, he's the highest owned defensive lineman on Yahoo. He's only at 64%. So, we're not seeing these guys really normalized at 100%, say like a Puka Nakua, or star players in fantasy on the offensive side. But nonetheless, TJ Watt, for reference, is the number one owned defensive lineman, 64%. Micah Parsons is the second most, and he already drops down to 53%. So we're going to kind of skip way down there and assume that, looking at the even fringe DL2s, they're probably about 20 or under. But I'm going to try to make this deep right now and almost guarantee that these players are out there for you, especially in those shallower leagues. Now, my barometer is 10% or under owned percentage on Yahoo to make the list. And the first guy, I think, if he's out there, he's only owned in 10%, so he definitely makes the list. But if he's out there and you're maybe in a league where you start 2 or 3 defensive linemen, 100% he should be owned. And that is Kobe Turner. He has a matchup versus Houston this week. But before we get into the matchup, let's talk about Kobe Turner and why you should be interested in owning him. So first and foremost, last season, 2024, he played full season, 17 games. Actually, I'll call it 16. He didn't accumulate any stats in the Week 18 matchup. I believe they were resting their starters. No tackles, no sacks. Did play 20%, but we're going to basically thin that out to 16 games. In those 16 full games, Kobe Turner had 62 combined tackles, 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 4 pass defensed, and a forced fumble. And if you're thinking this was a fluke, I'm going to point to the year before, 2023. Again, 17 games played, so you're getting a sturdy player. In 2023, a full season, he had 57 tackles, a little bit down of what he did last year, but he had 9 sacks in that season as well, 8 tackles for loss, and 2 passes defensed. Keep in mind that, opportunity is key when it comes to defensive linemen. I don't like to roster defensive linemen who are, part-time players who are going out there to maybe brush the quarterback and maybe get a sack. But outside of that, they're not really doing much for you. But Kobe Turner is actually the exact opposite of that. He plays last season, at least, was an average of 75% of snaps, which for a defensive lineman is terrific. I don't have the stat right in front of me, but I believe, if you're playing 75 or more percent of defensive snaps as a defensive lineman, you're basically in the top 25 for snaps. So that's a very promising sign right there. Also, 8 out of 16 games played for Kobe Turner, he's had 4 or more tackles, meaning he has a safe tackle floor. That's kind of a player that I like to target, somebody who's not going to give me a 1 or 2 in a sack, and that's how they're going to make their money, or multiple sacks even. I like kind of getting that guy who, nonetheless, Kobe Turner, we know can get sacks. He's had 17 over the last 2 seasons, literally, 8 and 9. So that's a very healthy number. If you're getting 10 or more sacks, that's going to put you on the map, number one. But I don't really need 10 or 12 sacks to make my team. I'm really focusing on the tackles here. And the fact that he can get sacks as well even makes it sweeter. So once again, 8 out of 16, half of the games played, he's had 4 or more tackles last year. And then 6 out of 16 games, he's had a sack. And actually, that's not even a fair representation, even though that's just under a half. 2 of those games, he's had 2 sacks in 2 games. So really, we could almost say 8 sacks in 16 games. So really, half the time he's getting a sack, more or less. Kobe Turner is a sturdy defensive lineman. I'm going to call him a DL2, especially in tackle-heavy formats. Speaking of the week 1 matchup versus Houston, I don't absolutely love it. Number one is I don't think that C.J. Stroud is a great opportunity to go and get a bunch of tackles against that offense. That I don't think the Houston Texans are going to be down in this game. I think the Rams are going to be up, and Houston will be down. So I think they're going to have to throw awfully a lot, and that's not really the makes of a great matchup for a defensive lineman when you're looking at the tackles. Maybe he'll get a sack on C.J. Stroud, and that would be sweet. That would be icing on the cake. But hopefully, Kobe Turner can start it off here with a solid 3 or 4 tackles. Again, not somebody who's going to have that huge play upside of like a T.J. Watt or a Myles Garrett, but a modest player. And you know what? It's what kind of bed do you want to sleep in? Do you want to have 2 points or 22? Or do you want to have 8 or 10 every week? And that's kind of the player that Kobe Turner is, and the player that I kind of focus on with my defensive linemen. I'd like to make my money with the linebackers here. In defensive linemen, if you give me, like I said, 8 to 10, we're in good hands. So Kobe Turner, albeit a not terrific matchup versus Houston in week 1, I think an outstanding player for the duration of the season. Number 2, even lower owned percentage, is Zach Allen. And Zach Allen's actually right neck and neck there with Kobe Turner. Some would actually prefer Zach Allen. I've seen him in sleeper leagues go as a top 12 defensive lineman. So if he's out there, we definitely need to pick him up as well. He gets a week 1 matchup versus Tennessee. Now in 2024, Zach Allen, I'm buying into the last 2 seasons. You cannot say that 2024 was a fluke because he did just almost the same in 2023. But 2024, 16 games played, so he did miss a game, but he still had 61 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, and an outstanding 40 quarterback hits if you get points in your league for that. We go back and look at 2023. Well, 2024 was just built a little bit better than 2023, but still a really exciting season in 2023 for Zach Allen. Full games, all 17 games played, had 60 tackles there too. 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 24 quarterback hits. So Zach Allen looks to be a player who can get you, 60 plus tackles and 5 to 8 sacks, which is terrific. Almost kind of like a Kobe Turner. Maybe has an even higher upside, and he also plays a lot of snaps too. So Zach Allen kind of fits the bill there for a, not really a sexy defensive lineman, not in the household names of the Watts, the Garretts, the Bosas. But somebody who definitely, you should be pouncing on if you have the opportunity to pick him up, especially if your defensive linemen aren't the strongest point of your team. Next is Derek Brown, one of my favorite guys, especially in tackle-heavy scoring. Maybe outweighs, Zach Allen and Kobe Turner. It's just lacking with the sacks there with him. But Derek Brown only owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, and I think this has a big part to do with his injury last season. In 2024, he only played 1 game. He did play 90% of snaps, and that is the player who Derek Brown is. He does, garner 80, 85, 90% of snaps. So if you're somebody who says you got to be on the field to, get the stats, Derek Brown is saying truth to that. Now in that 1 game, he only had 3 tackles, but I'm basically throwing that season out the window, and it's actually helping us get him at a discounted price. If you look back at 2023, Derek Brown, he would not be 5% owned if that was 2024. The reason is because in that year, played all 17 games, 103 tackles, which set the NFL record for a defensive lineman. He had 2 sacks as well, 7 tackles for loss, 6 pass defense, and 15 quarterback hits. Now, in that 2023, that was, if you're looking for snap counts, 89% of defensive snaps. So again, right there with that 90% that he played 1 game in 2024. I love, Derek Brown. I really don't think, as far as if you're in a tackle heavy league, he might be, there's not many players, I should say, who you should, pick over him. Of course, TJ Watt, and no matter what scoring, he's probably going to go higher. But if you're chasing the tackles and you're in a league where you get 2 points for a solo tackle, 1 an assist, Derek Brown should definitely be considered a DL2 with upside for more. So I love Derek Brown. I love his week 1 matchup versus Jacksonville. I do think that Jacksonville is going to be up in that game, and they're going to want to showcase, find out who those 3 running backs are, and run it awfully a lot. And that's where Derek Brown makes his money. Don't expect a lot of sacks with Derek Brown. If that's kind of what you're going for, you're kind of going to be disappointed. His career high with sacks is 3, and that was a few seasons ago. But nonetheless, we're talking about a guy in 2023 who was fourth in defensive line scoring, fourth overall in tackle heavy leagues. So Derek Brown, I mean, 103 tackles. Is it going to happen again? Probably not. But does that mean it's not going to be 80, 90? I think that's a real possibility here. So Derek Brown, cream of the crop when it comes to tackles from the defensive lineman position. And this is about really all they got at this point in Carolina. I know they have a couple other decent names there too, but Derek Brown is the life of that that defensive line. So wheels up on him. That's definitely a name in deeper leagues at only 5%. And one more for you, Carl Granderson. Only owned in 4% of Yahoo leagues, so I know he's being slept on. But he is kind of a household name. Did have a monster season in 2023, but people might be looking at the 2024 season, which was a downtick in production. 2024, he played a full season, 61 tackles, which is still great for a defensive lineman. 5.5 sacks, which is still fine. 9 tackles for loss, 4 pass defense, a forced fumble, and 13 quarterback hits. Now, let's look at his potential. Like the 2023 season he had, it was a full 17 games as well. He had 78 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and 20 quarterback hits. In 2024, this past season, he played 70%, but in that breakout 2023 season, he played 80%. So probably looking at a player who you can say at this point about 70 to 80%, we'll call it 75% of snaps. Again, healthy for a defensive lineman. And I'm going to bet the upside here. Carl Granderson is not an old head on the decline right now. I think he just kind of didn't really get the snaps. I'm sorry, he did get the snaps last year. I think he didn't really just have the opportunities that he did, for whatever reason. But I'm betting I'm betting on the side that he returns to form a little bit here. And even if he splits these numbers from 2023 and 2024, you're still looking about 70 tackles, 6 or 7 sacks, and about a dozen tackles for loss. So this is a great player, only owned in 4% of Yahoo leagues. I don't love his matchup versus Arizona right off the jump in week 1, but again, we're not here just for week 1. We're here for the long haul too, and I think I like Carl Granderson in the long run for the season long play more than week 1, but nonetheless is definitely a sleeper. And if you're in a deeper league, Carl Granderson and especially Derek Brown are 2 guys to consider. Now we're going to move on to some linebackers, everyone's favorite position to talk about. For reference here, Zaire Franklin is the highest overall defensive player when it comes to own percentage on Yahoo at 90%. But a couple players down from him is Foye Oluokun, another top 5 top 5 linebacker, and he's only at 45%. So already down half of the percentage. So as you can see here, linebackers are a little bit under owned than the defensive linemen, but I'm going to make my cutoff at 15%. So let's talk about some linebackers who are owned in under 15% of leagues. And the first one being Carson Swessinger. If you have 2 linebackers or even 3, definitely 3 linebackers, but even a 2 linebacker league, even if it's 10 guys, I have personally Swessinger inside my top 20. I believe he's 16 in my rankings. You should definitely go get Swessinger. Don't walk, run. This guy's a walking bomb, going to go off this year. I mean, to be honest, I think Carson Swessinger has top 5 linebacker potential in redraft this year, so huge upside. And I know we have not seen it yet, but 2024 at UCLA in his final year, Swessinger had 136 tackles, 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. His 90 solo tackles led the FBS last year. We also get a banged up Cleveland Browns linebacking room. They lost Jordan Hicks to retirement. There might be a suspension in the helm for Devin Bush. Behind that, they really have nobody. Mahmoud Diabate. So right now, as it stands, Carson Swessinger is the green dot. He's the middle linebacker of that defense, the leader of the defense already, and I think this might be for a long time to come. So Carson Swessinger, this is a bad Cleveland team. There's no way around it. Again, I think he has top 5 potential. I'm going to give a shout out to Matty Dubs from YouTube. I'm not a big breakdown film guy, but if you go type in on Google Carson Swessinger, Matty Dubs, I'm sure you can find the video. Matt does a great job of breaking down game film of preseason game film, that is, of Swessinger. And one thing that was so impressive to me, why I'm very bullish again, is you just watch him in that video. He's shedding blockers, shedding in, offensive linemen, keeps his eye on the running back, throws them away at the right time, and is still able to throw away an offensive lineman and make a tackle at the same time. This guy's going to eat this year. So Carson Swessinger, a guy who I definitely like in drafts as a top 20 linebacker. And even if you're sitting pretty at linebacker and you think, I got good guys, I still think take a good look at Swessinger at only 13% owned. My next guy is Micah McFadden, 9% owned. He's got a matchup versus Washington this week. In 2024, Micah McFadden had his career year with 107 tackles, 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. He played well in tackle-heavy scoring and also in big play, those 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, really count there too. So Micah McFadden, a big thing about him is we don't know what's going to happen with Bobby Okereke. His health looks iffy right now. Maybe he needs a little bit of time off the field, not his full allotment of snaps. But regardless, we're going to see what happens here in week 1 with Bobby Okereke. But keep Micah McFadden in the back of your mind. If you're in deeper leagues right now, you start 3 or 4 linebackers. Maybe you hop on this early. I'm not saying start Micah McFadden with confidence, but I do think there is room to grow as far as snap percentage. In 2023, McFadden played 68% of snaps, while in 2024 up to 75%. Who knows? Maybe he hits about 78, 80% this year, maybe even higher if Bobby Okereke is having issues coming off back surgery. As far as week 1, I think Micah McFadden is in an absolute smash spot versus Washington. I think Washington is going to be up in that game, and Micah McFadden, if he plays close to full-time snaps, should garner at least 6 to 8 tackles. So I think Micah McFadden, not only a player that's going to be a solid linebacker in week 1, but maybe has more upside than we're giving him right now. Next guy is Christian Roseboom, all the way down to 4% owned. He's got a matchup at Jacksonville this week. A little bit about Roseboom, 2024, 135 tackles, a sack, 5 tackles for loss, and 4 pass defense on 74% of snaps. 2024, he had 5 double-digit tackle games. 11 out of the 16 games he played were 8 or more tackle games, so a very solid floor here for Christian Roseboom. An interesting tidbit is that Josie Jewell for the Panthers last season, who we know is not there anymore, played 94% of snaps. So that number 1 linebacker is a full-time player. Christian Roseboom at 74% of tackles last year, had 135 tackles. Let's see what he does close to 90%. So Christian Roseboom, very solid tackler. As far as tackle-heavy leagues, very solid IDP player. If you're looking for those big plays, unfortunately, Christian Roseboom doesn't look like he really has that in his repertoire. Only 1 sack last year, no interceptions, no forced fumbles, things like that. But 135 tackles, no way around it, is a valuable linebacker. Moving on to my last 2 guys here, probably my favorite 2 sleepers in deeper leagues. The first being Jack Sanborn at 1% owned. That's going to jump up a lot in the coming weeks. He's got a matchup at Philly, a terrific matchup, so I'm fine with starting Sanborn even in shallower leagues right off the jump. The stat you need to know about Jack Sanborn is he's still young. He's 24 years old, but he has 3 years under his belt. Those were with the Chicago Bears, and he's played 7 games over 85% in his 3 years with Chicago, and in those 7 games, he's had 70 tackles, right? So, if he's the middle linebacker that we've seen in the preseason, if this is for real, he's definitely going to play over 85% of snaps. Doesn't mean 100, but maybe, low 90s to start it off is a modest expectation. But Eric Kendricks last year played 95% of snaps as the middle linebacker for Dallas, had 138 tackles and 3 sacks, and I believe he missed a couple games too. So Jack Sanborn, I don't think he's going to, total 10 tackles a game and have 170 tackles, but this line from Kendricks, 138 tackles, I think he can get more than that. 3 sacks. We've seen sacks in his game too. I don't know if he'll have 3 or more, but a sack or 2 with 140 tackles, I think is a fair expectation for Jack Sanborn, and maybe he surprises us and does even better. And finally, Nate Lamin, again at 1% owned. He's got a matchup versus Houston this week, which is a decent matchup. Don't love it, but certainly could be worse. 2023, Nate Lamin was his best year so far. Last year, the snaps kind of fell off, but in 2023, on 75% of snaps, had 110 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 7 tackles for loss, and an interception. And of course, the news is we've heard that he's going to be the middle linebacker, the green dot for the Rams, which has got us very excited in IDP land. And Nate Lamin is definitely somebody who will play in tackle heavy scoring, and absolutely will play also in big play scoring too. We've seen those 3 forced fumbles and 2 sacks at 75% of snaps. Let's see what he can do at about 80 to 90% of snaps. For a comparison, Christian Roseboom for the Rams last year had that 135 tackles on 74% of snaps. But towards the end, he started playing a little bit higher, about 80 to 90%. So I could see that being his role there, about 85 to 90% of snaps. And I think he eclipses that career year of 2023 this season. I'm projecting maybe about 130 tackles, a couple sacks, a couple forced fumbles, which makes him a very hot commodity in IDP. So Nate Lamin's a guy who you're going to see that own percentage jump on. Looking at defensive backs, when we're talking about the highest owned defensive back is Travis Hunter at 89%. Of course, he's an outlier. He's mostly drafted as a wide receiver. So when you look at the number 2 defensive back owned, it goes down to 66%, and that's Brian Branch, rightfully so. And all the way down, even to third, would be Jesse Bates, and we're already getting down into the 50s, 59%. So my criteria here was quite low. It was under 15%. And the first guy I wrote about was Jekwan Brisker. Jekwan Brisker is owned right now in 13% only of Yahoo leagues. He's got a nice matchup versus the Minnesota Vikings week 1. Jekwan Brisker, a reason why he might be so low in the owned percentage is he only played 5 games last year. Did play 97% of snaps. Was played 100% of snaps all the first 4 games. In the last game, 85% because he got hurt. He had concussions and he never came back. It was a shame because he was averaging 8 tackles a game. He also had a forced fumble, 2 pass defense, and 3 tackles for loss, and a sack to throw in there too. I think Jekwan Brisker is a top 8 defensive back, really in any scoring. And if you're in tackle heavy scoring, he could be even make a case to be top 5. So I love Jekwan Brisker. Of course, he could have another concussion. That could be a tough decision for him about his career, but nonetheless, he's healthy right now to start the year. And in week 1, anyone has a chance to get hurt. But yeah, bottom line, he's healthy right now. And this is not a player who, has not really done much in his career. This will be his 3rd year. And in the first 2 years, actually his 4th year, but in the first two out of the first 3 years, he's had 105 tackles and then 104 tackles. So we've seen him eclipse 100 tackles before. Then you throw in the splash plays. Keep in mind, 8 tackles a game is what he averaged those first 5 games, and that was even missing, 15% of the last game. But if we take that 8 tackles a game, multiply that by 17 games, he was on pace for 136 tackles. Like, we'd be talking about him like Nick Cross and Budda Baker if he maybe finished out the year. So Jekwan Brisker, 13%, needs to be bumped up higher. Next guy is probably my favorite defensive back to draft this far into the preseason, and that is Tyler Nuban. Nuban's only owned in 11% of Yahoo leagues, but it's either you're going to pick him up or somebody else will. He's got a smash spot at Washington. I think this is kind of last call for Tyler Nuban if people didn't know him or were on to him already. Last season as a rookie, was a full-time player, played 13 games before having an ankle injury and missed the rest of the season. But in those 13 games, 98 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. Weeks 10 through 12, those 3 weeks there, kind of like graduating, almost getting to his sophomore year. That's kind of the player that that's kind of the weight I put on a player like Tyler Nuban as a rookie, not really looking at the first couple weeks. Let's see what he does when, he gets more comfortable. And in those 3 weeks, 10, 11, 12, he totaled 36 tackles, 12 tackles, 12 tackles, and 12 tackles, all 3 weeks. He ended up getting hurt week 13, only played 55% of the snaps. Then he had that ankle injury, but still at 55% snaps, he had 5 tackles. So let's just double that 55. I know it's 110%, but there's a good chance you could be looking at Tyler Nuban having 4 double-digit tackle games in a row, which no other safety did last year. Budda Baker did have 3 consecutive 10 or more tackle games, but nobody had 4. Hey, who's to say that couldn't have been Nuban? People might be looking at the first 3 weeks, or if you look at the season as a whole, the tackles per game wasn't that impressive, but keep in mind those last 4 games, 41 tackles, while meanwhile the first 3 games were only 13 tackles. So that average tackles per game, kind of doesn't really show the whole truth. I personally believe if Tyler Nuban was playing weeks 13 through 18, we'd be looking at him different, drafting him as that top 3, top 5 defensive back. But he got hurt nonetheless, and again, discounted price. So only owned in 11% of leagues does not do justice to Tyler Nuban. Also, something to consider, we mentioned with Micah McFadden, is Bobby Okereke's health. I personally believe if Bobby O is not able to be out there for his normal allotment of snaps, this is going to work out in Tyler Nuban's favor. So I think not only is Week 1 versus Washington a smash spot, I think this whole season is a smash spot for Tyler Nuban. In every IDP league I'm in, I try to walk away with Tyler Nuban. He might be in the 8, 10 in the rankings. I'm taking him as a top 5 defensive back. So I'm really bullish on Nuban. Glad I got to talk about him. And my last player we'll talk about on this episode until Week 2 is Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit is only owned in 8% of Yahoo leagues. He's perhaps got the best matchup out of anybody at any position, and that is versus the Bengals. We expect Joe Burrow to, go off the rails as far as throwing the ball with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. 2024 Grant Delpit, 16 games played. He missed a game. Played 96% of defensive snaps, so full-time player, nothing else to it. 111 tackles from the safety position, a sack, a fumble recovery, 7 tackles for loss, and a pass defense. 11 out of those 16 games played were 6 or more tackle games, which goes to show the high floor, consistency in Grant Delpit's tackle game. And again, smash spot Week 1. And I think, this is not only Week 1, but this is going to be a very productive DB2, maybe even borderline DB1 as the season goes on. So again, with Grant Delpit, just like these other guys here, we're here for the tackles. We can gauge that, when it comes for you're looking for a defensive back that gets you sacks. Antoine Winfield's probably your guy, but good luck gauging when he's going to get that sack. So let's gauge the tackles here. Grant Delpit, Tyler Nuban, and Jekwan Brisker are 3 mighty fine defensive backs that I'm surprised are this low in the own percentage. So once again, I will be coming out with this video once a week. I'll start it off with the real deal after Week 1, uploading it in the beginning of Week 2. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions or comments, anything you'd like to see add to the show, please let me know. And if you have not drafted yet, best of luck in your redrafts, your IDP redrafts. We're going to give you the best information to keep you on top. So keep rocking with me, and good luck this season. Thanks for watching. Thanks for viewing. We will see you next time on the IDP Plus podcast.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.